Second to the last session of the day and of the conference is our awards and networking, and we have been looking forward to this session with a lot of excitement. I'm not sure this is something that we've done before, especially this particular award. It's one that we would like to make annual. It's our Partner in Preservation Award. And we are giving this to someone who has been an instrumental part of the team. And we're actually going to have a second award as well that is not listed on the program. And before we jump into that, I just want to say how grateful I am for you, Shasta. We don't have an award for you, but we talked about it. You are the best board chair that one could possibly hope for, and your support has definitely been a huge part of getting us to the point where we are today, and all of the board members. Honestly, it's just such a supportive community, and I'm looking forward to being able to extend that feeling out to all of our members and potential members as well. And also to my husband, Matt. He's taking a nap while baby naps, but you guys haven't seen him running around behind the scenes here. He's taken off these 2 days of work to do daycare and bring me food and make sure that the tech runs as smoothly as it's possible to under these circumstances. He's a hero, and I just want to shout out to him there. I'm actually going to turn it over to Everett Bandy, our Eastern Oklahoma board member, to do the presentation of these 2 awards.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Honoree, my name is Everett Bandy. For those of you who didn't hear me introduce myself yesterday, I'm a member of the Quapaw Nation. My Indian name is Malcheotin, which means strikes the chest, and I'm a Snake Clan. Our TIPO office has been recognized by MPS since 2010, and I've been the TIPO of our tribe for nearly 8 years. And I've been the Eastern Oklahoma representative for the NATHPO board for, I believe, 4 or 5 years now. Although, as Valerie mentioned, only 1 award is mentioned in our program, I do have the honor of presenting 2 awards on behalf of NATHPO today. And I wanted to talk a little bit about them. Our elders tell us that the act of giving is central to our people. Among our Native American people, giving is often used to create, honor, and continue relationships and to acknowledge important actions by individuals. And one traditional gift of high importance in our tribe and many tribes is a blanket. A blanket is more than just a simple physical object. Sometimes we forget that, but symbolically it represents the desire that we have for the other person to have comfort, warmth, and security. It further represents an expression of sincere respect and gratitude for the person you're giving it to. At one time, this gift would have been made by hand with whatever was available to our people or acquired through trade. Because of this, and in my tribe and in many other tribes across this continent, it is considered a high honor both to give a blanket and receive one. In accordance with this tradition, we have a blanket from 8th generation, which was designed by John Isaiah Pepion from the Blackfeet Nation. It emulates the breathtaking colors of the Montana skies and pays tribute to the Plains Indian horse culture. I think Valerie's grabbing it right now. Did you leave? Okay, here we go. This is the blanket that was made by John Isaiah Pepion, which, as I was saying, emulates the colors of the Montana sky and pays tribute to the Plains Indian horse culture. It is my honor on behalf of NATHPO to virtually present Wes Furlong with this gift as part of our first ever Partner in Preservation Award. Wes, NATHPO thanks you for your exemplary service in support of our mission and members, beginning with the National Register rule, whose defeat we newly celebrate, and in which you played a pivotal role. You have become an excellent resource and advocate for us. For the past few years, you have led many of our legal and policy battles pro bono, and while we are forever grateful, we now look forward to the beginning of a new chapter with you. We are hopeful that in the coming years, we can build on this partnership with you as we work to effect real change in protecting Native places. In normal times, in accordance with our tradition, we would present this blanket to you in person and place it upon your shoulders with a handshake and expression of thanks. In this time of a global pandemic, we hope that you accept this gift, award certificate, and letter of thanks with the same sentiment that we would prefer to express to you in person. Thank you, Wes.
Wow, I'm incredibly humbled and honored to receive this. I had no idea. I'm glad I popped back into my office when I did. I really appreciate it. And obviously, as you've said, Everett, it's unfortunate that we can't be in person. I can't be there in person to receive this. But yeah, I'm really at a loss for words, which is unusual for an attorney. It's been a real pleasure and privilege over the last year and a half or 2 years or so that I've been able to work with NATHPO on these issues, and I really have appreciated you know, the working with Valerie, working with Shasta, working with everyone on the board, and being able to be a part of these conversations and these important issues. You know, I haven't been working at NARF as long as a lot of other people, and certainly haven't been working in these issues as long as probably most people on this call. But it's been an incredible privilege to be able to work on these cultural resource issues, not just with NATHPO, but my other clients in Alaska and lower 48. You know, to me, working on these issues is incredibly important in preserving and protecting these landscapes and these resources. Is my life's work, and I'm glad that I'm able to do this for my clients and for NATHPO and NATHPO's memberships in all of Indian country. So I humbly accept this, and I'm really really honored. So thank you.
Thank you for all your help.
Everett, hang on. Here's the man. Say hi, everybody.
Hello.
This is Matt.
Thank you for your help, Matt.
Support staff.
Well, now we know that Wes and Matt aren't the same person. You know, we got to see them both in separate places at the same time, but you both have the same quarantine beard going on. So.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. Good to see you, Matt, and thank you, Wes. In addition, in the same way as I've described, we also have another wool blanket that we purchased from Teton Trade Cloth. That's hard to say quickly. It is called the Overlook and features the iconic view from Oxbow Bend in Grand Teton National Park. The aspen groves perfectly frame Mount Moran, reflecting in the waters of this Oxbow Lake and the Snake River that flows through Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which will also be momentarily displayed by Valerie. I spoke a little fast there, sorry. And so it is my honor on behalf of NATHPO to virtually present Julie Nelson with this gift as part of our first ever NATHPO Impact Award. Julie, you began supporting NATHPO pro bono, believing in what we could become. You play a pivotal role in the growth we are now enjoying. You have helped us navigate one of the most challenging periods in generations, and we are forever grateful. We now look forward to the beginning of a new chapter with you as well. We are hopeful that in the coming years, we can build on our partnership together as we work to affect real change in protecting Native places together. In normal times, we would, again, as I said to Wes, we would present this blanket to you in person and place it upon your shoulders with a handshake and an expression of thanks. In this time of a global pandemic, we hope that you accept this gift, award certificate, and letter of thanks with the same sentiment that we would prefer to express to you in person. Thank you for your help, Julie.
I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. This is such an amazing honor. And what a surprise. I'm so incredibly honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of your help, Julie. You've been wonderful for our organization as well.
Thank you.
That's all the speech I had, Valerie. Is there anything else that I needed to, I asked you to help me stay on target. Did I cover everything?
That was beautiful.
Okay,
Yep. A virtual awards presentation. That was a fun challenge, and I think you nailed it, Everett. I need a little more space in my office to properly show those off, but hopefully you got to take a look at them there.
We could see them. Thank you.
Wes, Julie, thank you. We look forward to continuing to work with you.
It is truly an honor to be with you guys and to be doing the things that we get to do. So thank you so much.
I wanted to say as well that when we had planned to have the conference in 2019, we wanted to add a Tribal Historic Preservation Award to recognize a TIPO who has done exemplary work above and beyond. And we put out a call for nominations and didn't get a ton of responses. So we decided to wait on that one. And earlier in yesterday's programming, I mentioned that we are planning to have a mid-year event, and I've got an idea for something I'd like to do for the content of that, but we will be opening up nominations again for the Tribal Historic Preservation Award, which we will also make an annual recurring thing to elevate the work that you guys do and celebrate you. And I think I'd like to add a congressional or a federal award as well, so we can do two at that time. And in case you missed it yesterday, my idea for the event is to collaborate with Nick Shippo and with the Shippos so that we can invite elected representatives, probably virtually, since I would like to have a nationwide scope for that, and have you guys tell them about the work that you're doing, success stories, challenges, and make a bigger full court press for more funding for them to appropriate more money to you guys, because your Ted Shippo, my dear colleague, always says this: you guys are the backbone of the NHPA. You guys do the work that needs to be done, and you need support and funding in order to do it. And the word cloud we did yesterday was really gratifying for me, because I certainly spend a lot of time and effort on that, and Bambi always did as well. And so we just need to redouble those efforts, and we need you guys to help us. And if we want different results, we need to do something different, and that's what we're going to talk about doing this year. So those are my ideas for the mid-year event and for the rest of this session. Obviously, take breaks if you need it. We're going to have a solutions-focused networking and knowledge exchange. We're going to facilitate an open discussion among participants as best as we can in this virtual format. And we want to do another word cloud to kick off that exercise. That was really fun, and Shasta set up another one for us with a question that everyone will be able to answer, except for code.
So let me once again type over here in the chat. I will put the website that you need to pull open a browser window and go to menti.com, and then I will share my screen, and then I will start the word cloud. Oh, and you know what? I just figured something out. Huh. Okay.
Hold on, Shasta. Can you make Alex not a co-host so that he can participate in the?
Oh, sure.
I gave the host to you.
I'm withdrawing your co-host permission, Alex. I apologize. Okay, so this is a question for everybody, and it should be showing now on your screen. And at the top, it does have the menti.com, and then with the password, which is 7051928. Maybe somebody can put that in the chat, because right now I'm showing my full screen. And you will get to answer this question. And just to, as always, contextualize it a little bit. So this question is, what are some of the main tribal cultural resource management issues you face? And I wanted to put this, or we wanted to put this in a way that would allow everybody to answer, not just the tribal folks. So, and I don't like calling it cultural resources management, because that's just a very Western way of describing very sacred things, but that was easier. So we do have some results coming in. So just one or two words for some of the issues that you face. Oh, I like that, oral history versus science. Somebody put happiness. So you feel happiness? That's an issue you face? I mean, that's a good issue. I would like to face more happiness. right now. I feel like a lot of us are facing a lot of, difficulty. Lack of accountability, ignorance. And, ignorance is one of those really interesting words, because ignorance just means you don't know. And so there's a difference between ignorance and then being educated about something and yet still continuing to do the wrong thing. So, although Alex, I saw that eye roll. So maybe you and I need to have a chat about the meaning of ignorance, because I rely on you for your PhD knowledge of words. But gee, who's surprised to see that funding, as always, is the biggest so far. Oh, preservation off the res. I like that one. That's really important. Multiple removals, consultation failure, tribal council interference. Oh my gosh. Yeah, whoever said that, I think you probably prefer to remain anonymous, at least for now. Turnover 106, Appendix C, being taken serious, staff needs, yeah. And I see limited staff, so some of these are overlapping, overloaded rush timelines. Oh boy, I think this is that moment. We're at the end of our 2 days and we've spent a long time over these Zoom screens trying to interact with one another, and now I think the floodgates have opened. So I had 42 responses. But I think people are probably still thinking it over. And I don't remember if I made you all put in 3 different choices before you could hit enter, or if I let you just do one at a time. But you can go back and add more things. Yeah, but funding is still that big one. Funding, consultation, lack of accountability, workload, capacity, education, staffing, and time. Those seem to be the things that are really coming out on top. Yeah. So I know you're all seeing this too, but I love this. It's really great to see everybody's thoughts on what their issues are. So I am going to go ahead and give this just a few more seconds. And now I'm going to go ahead and stop the share, although it's still open, so people can continue to add to it. I'm just not sharing the screen anymore. And instead, I'm going to return us to spotlights. So thank you, everybody, for participating in that. And this hour that we have here, which we're now actually already 20 minutes into, it's amazing how quickly the time can go by. This is where we're going to talk to one another and maybe have an opportunity for some of those questions that we haven't had a chance to address. And so you can use that hand raising function to raise your hand. It's at the bottom of the screen, should be under reactions. And you can raise your hand and we will call on you. You can unmute yourself and you can make a comment or you can ask a question. But in the meantime, we do have a question in the chat. What are the thoughts regarding the Army Corps of Engineers regionalization efforts? And this is from Nicholas Kager. I have vehemently opposed this for various reasons. What can tribes do to prevent this action? And by this action, I assume you mean the regionalization efforts. Nicholas, do you want to unmute yourself and give a little bit more background on what you're looking for? Let me see if I can find you. Okay, I asked you to unmute if you would care to do so. But if not, that's okay too. And Santa says, I think he's talking about Appendix C. So I don't have an answer for that question. I don't know if there's anybody who wants to unmute themselves and talk about this question.
This is Patrick Baird with the NATHPO Tribe. And what Nick is talking about is the Corps of Engineers their Northwest Division has decided that they are going to move all their collections to regional repositories out of where they are now for the Upper Midwest and the Northwest. And a lot of the Northwest tribes are really concerned because materials could end up very, very far away from us.
Okay.
Yeah. Beyond that, we have a federally recognized archive. There's absolutely no reason why Army Corps should have our belongings. And on top of that, we could have a Cobell situation. I don't even know what they have. They don't even know what they have. That is ours. And that it's just crazy to me that they would try to hold on to those resources that our ancestors may well have put their spirits into making. It's just hubris of the greatest degree.
Thanks, Nicholas and Pat for explaining that. Does anybody else want to raise a hand or just unmute yourself and contribute to that? So this is where things get weird, because it's like everybody's muted, but if we unmute everybody, everybody just starts talking all at once. But yeah, it's a big deal, because we didn't really get to it too much in our discussion, for example, of NAGPRA. But Tim, if you're still on, this might be something you want to address. We did have a couple of polls that we were going to do on NAGPRA, and we didn't end up getting to them. But some of these are things that I think are relevant to federal agency collections and how the tribes are supposed to make requests to get their items back. And curation of objects and items and artifacts is, it's like Lee Klaus says in the chat, it's not just about the Army Corps' collections, but all federal collections. So this is something that is something else that we need to put on our list. And I'm not getting a response from Tim that he's still here. I see him on the list, but he's not unmuting. So how about Wendy Teeter? Are you on the line? Oh no, she's not. I just searched for her and she's not here. Well, I'm looking through the chat here, and so here's one from Andrea Hunter. Dr. Hunter, do you want to say anything about that out loud? Unmute yourself, because I would love to hear from you.
Well, we have been sending our NAGPRA representative over to these meetings that the court in St. Louis has been, and Kansas City has been hosting, and there are just so many issues with this in terms of collections, them not knowing what is in their collections, and us not being able to view these collections in advance of something like this, so that the potential for objects and our ancestral remains getting mishandled, getting lost, getting left behind. There's a lot of compounding issues here. And I think that, once again, the Corps has not thoroughly thought this through of all of the ramifications. So we're continuing to fight this.
Thank you. And yeah, as Kirk Perry says in the comments here, it's NAGPRA is just a part of their artifacts. And from my perspective, I would like to see the entire law, the whole spectrum of the law changed, because NAGPRA is very limiting in what it allows the tribes to claim. And if it's ancestral remains, of course, and you would think that that's not that hard to determine. But even ancestral remains, if they can't make an acceptably Western scientific determination of cultural affiliation, then, you know, what happens to those ancestral remains? And, you know, in my role as NATHPO's chairman, I also sit on the ACHP, and that's something I bring up in those meetings, which is, as far as what should be repatriated, it should be the tribe's decision what is repatriated. And that's what I would want to see put into the legislation is, you know, no more of this culturally unaffiliated. It was found in the area that is a tribal ancestral land, and then that should be repatriated. Now, I know that sounds very simplistic, because sometimes there's competing claims from different tribes. You know, here in Southern California, we have multiple Kumeyaay bands, multiple Luiseño bands, you know, so it's not always that simple. But I would love to see some fix to the legislation so that tribes don't have to go out of their way to make the case that an artifact is an item of cultural patrimony. If the tribes want it back, the tribes should get it back. Comments? Questions? And Amanda from Tolowa, she says some museums are using NAGPRA repatriation process as their own research projects. Yeah, and Jill Wagner is asking me, how do we make that happen? I don't know. Who wants to run for office? You know, who wants to be the politician who brings that legislation? Oh, did somebody just volunteer? I heard somebody. Whoever unmuted themselves is now does. Oh, Jill Wagner says, "Oh, hell no." Wes, what about you? You want to run for office for us?
I'm in the NATHPO, the NATHPO conference.
Oh, I think somebody's unmuted and saying that they're in a conference and they're not realizing that they're unmuted. And I know somebody earlier today dropped a curse word while she was trying to get the video sound to work, but I'm not naming my name. Ryan James says it should be a consortium of tribes. And Wes would rather sue them. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, Gano Perez, Kate Moore from the BIA just announced you as the nominee to run for public office. And Valerie, do you want to unmute and give your announcement in voice instead of in the chat?
Sure, but you can read it for yourself there as well. It's a fun thing to read. An email just came in from Keeper of the National Register herself, Joy Beasley. Just FYI that the National Register rule has been withdrawn from OMB. We've not yet received guidance on whether we will publish a notice to that effect, but I wanted to let you all know. I appreciate all the efforts and support of the entire historic preservation community during what has been a challenging process. Happy Thursday from Joy Beasley.
Yay! You know what? I kind of feel like we should all unmute at the same time and just be like, yay! You know, and be excited and happy. And Ray says, I thought I heard a curse word earlier. Yeah, that's always going to be me. I'm sorry to say. It's my mom has tried so hard, you know, soap and you know, duct tape and all that, and you know, sadly I take after my father in that regard. So people are saying yay, and I'm scrolling through and I'm looking at some of the faces of people whose videos are on, so I can see if you're laughing at me or laughing with me. I'm gonna hope for the with and not the at, but I also see that there's, you know, potentially some elders who I think are like, Shasta, somebody needs to school you on your language. And I'm looking for my friends to be giving me their faces. But yeah, so what else do you guys want to talk about? Because I know it's the end of a long conference, especially being online, but this is our chance. So like I said, we had a lot of questions come up earlier and didn't get a chance to address them. So anything that anybody wants to re-enter into the chat, That would be great. Or like I said, you can unmute yourself and just start talking. Don't make me call on you.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
I sent a chat earlier. I'm not I'm not a tribal historic preservation officer. I was a former council member at the Wind River Reservation for Eastern Shoshone for 20 years. My name is Wes Martell. I've just recently been hired by the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, and we're the values and mission of the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, I think, fit in with a lot of indigenous values and beliefs. And so I've been hired to work with the Wind River Reservation, and Josh Mann and Ben Ridgely are our TIPOs here for the Shoshones and Arapahoes. But I just wanted to alert everybody that in 2022, there will be the 150th year anniversary of the creation of Yellowstone Park. And, you know, historically, there's some issues regarding the creation of the park because that was Aboriginal homelands, but it's created. And so, you know, I really wanted to enlist the aid of the TIPOs because according to the preliminary research, there's been about at least 27 or 28 tribes that are connected to the park. And the Yellowstone ecosystem goes all the way up to the Northwest Territories. And down here at Wind River in the middle of Wyoming, we're kind of the southeast end of the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So I just wanted to give you all a word of general information about the Greater Yellowstone Coalition. Check it out on your websites. I'll be listed on there. I'm really looking forward to working with tribes and celebrating that anniversary. And I know, you know, the ecosystem itself was a place for us to hunt and gather our medicines and our foods and, you know, hold our ceremonies. And so it's a very sacred place. And then the healing waters that are there. And we have those same waters here at Wind River. So we're very lucky. But I just wanted to share that with everybody. Josh and Ben know me. If anybody wants to get me and get connected with me, just connect with Josh Mann or Ben Ridgely, and I'll be looking forward to hopefully hearing from some people.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martell. And you can always reach out to Valerie or me at NATHPO to help you spread the word.
I will definitely do that.
Thank you. And you know what? Maybe when we're all allowed to be together in person again, maybe our next NATHPO conference should be at Yellowstone, huh?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've never been.
Never?
Never.
You're really missing out.
I think so. But I mean, are you in that region right now?
I'm at Wind River right now. The northwest corner of Wind River is only 42 miles from the southeast corner of Yellowstone. So we're in that general vicinity.
Okay. And can you please tell me what the weather is like today?
It's snowing.
Okay. Yeah, Southern California, born and raised right here. And so I'm like, we're supposed to get a cold storm tonight. It's going to be like 45. That's cold.
We're 9 degrees here. So.
9 degrees. It makes me cold. I literally just shivered. But yeah,
I've been watching some of the presentations this afternoon, and very informative, very critical issues being talked about. And you know, this consultation message that just came down from President Biden, I think is a welcome sign for all of us, but there's still a lot of work to do. And, you know, just with the tribal historic preservation organizations, I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Great, wonderful, thank you. And I think that opened the dam a little bit. People are asking some questions. Alina Shively wants to know, does anyone have any suggestions for funding sources for a cultural center or a tribal museum? And if you have some suggestions for that, feel free to either unmute or put those in the chat. But I think that the Institute for Tribal, what is it? I always forget the acronym. IMLS, the Institute for Museum and Library Services, and then there's one for tribes as well, has I think at least planning grants, if not grants to actually construct it itself.
Yes, I can touch on that slightly.
Yeah.
Because we had to build one of our own. And so I can tell you that it's very difficult to get the government to fund construction of a cultural building, because it's just very difficult to get them to do that. They'll do some renovation for historic structures. MPS offers a grant for that, but it's very competitive. It's very hard to get funding for a cultural center. But what you can do is it's really easy to get funding for Department of Justice type buildings. So you can get a building for your marshals or your ICWA program or your whatever. It's really, really, really easy right now to get Department of Justice money, build a brand new building, and just happen to put part of it in a museum. And then over time, the federal government allows you to depreciate a building with your accounting practices. And so you can actually convert the building slowly into eventually, I think it'd probably take you 10 years, but you could move that, build a brand new Justice Department or something like that, move it out, and then have the whole building just be a museum at that point. But you'd have to follow government accounting practices to do it, correctly and legally. But you're really probably not going to find any funding that's going to help you build a museum. But you could find funding to help you build a building that you could put a museum in.
Thanks, Everett. That's a great suggestion. And I'm seeing a lot of people are also putting in other suggestions in the chat. And I will say here in Paula, we're doing something with some funding from HUD. And it's not for my department, but it's for our housing department. But it's going to be a new office for our housing department, but it's also a training center. It's going to have a large classroom style auditorium, and that's going to be used by multiple different departments. So that's a great way to leverage your funding to be able to have some sort of a multi-purpose structure. So thank you for that. That's great. And now I'm seeing some questions about the FCC, but I think it was Christopher Chavez wanted to talk. So Christopher, do you want to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Shasta, I was the first one waving to you yesterday morning. You might remember that.
Yes.
I'm from Santo Domingo, Pueblo. I'm the Tribal Historical Preservation Officer, and I just got weaned off the milk bottle, and this is my first attendance to this program, and I love your Santo Domingo jewelry that you're wearing. I don't know where you got those from, but anytime you want to redonate that back to my tribe, it's okay.
Here, I'll show up my various turquoise, which I went to school at UNM, so that's where I was for my PhD. So I became a bona fide turquoise jewelry addict. I mean, this is like maybe 5% of my collection. But I always make sure I buy directly from the artists. You know, none of that going to the plaza in Santa Fe and getting squeezed by the gift shops.
Anyway, I wanted to say that our tribe is pursuing a library, museum, and archives and we're putting it into the Veterans Building that we have accumulated a lot of these veterans items, and through the state we have some funding, and through the SAR Museum and the MIAC and Museum of Indian Arts and Crafts and the Indian Pueblo Council. So we're gaining some foundation to establish a museum, and the state has donated some infrastructure for the library, and we have collections from the MIAC Native Library, and we have quite a collection now. So that's one way we've done it, and that's I thought I'd put that out to you, that you can go to your state or your veterans organization or the museums themselves. They have a lot of funding to put out there for you. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, these are great suggestions, and we're seeing a whole bunch more coming in through the chat. And just a reminder that I am saving the chat. In fact, I just saved it again to make sure that I get all your comments, and we will compile a document with all the resources, all the links, all the great suggestions. Probably clean it up a little bit because they can be a little bit hard to read, but we'll make sure that everybody gets the chat from today and from yesterday shared with them. There was another question. I'm having to scroll way back up now because the chat keeps moving. But somebody wanted an update on the Twilight Towers and the FCC. And I don't know if maybe I can put Valerie Hauser on the spot from the ACHP. If Valerie, if you have anything you want to say about where we are on the Twilight Towers issues from the ACHP perspective.
I was just going to try to duck out before you asked me, but you caught me. Okay, busted. FCC ran away, so I don't know what they're doing about it. They didn't like what we said, and we haven't heard from them.
Well, an update you might not have heard, if I'm remembering correctly, is that they tried to basically trot out the program comment from 2017, 2018.
Right, with virtually no changes. And
in the fall. And
right.
That actually went to a vote of the advisory council members, of which we are one now, and was pretty unanimously shut down. And I don't think we've heard anything from them since then. I don't know if Jill's on here now, but it's one of two things we would like to resume discussions with FCC on in the coming months, assuming they're willing to discuss things. They're, the staff are reasonable people. They really are.
Hey Valerie, this is Jill. Can you hear me?
Jill. Glad you're there.
Hopefully I'm one of the reasonable people, but just as a point of update, because there is a lot of change right now in the federal government. So the way that the FCC works, there are 5 commissioners, actually 4 commissioners and a chairman. And the president gets to elect the chairman, nominate the chairman who's confirmed. And that person is always from the president's party. So with the election, Chairman Pai actually resigned, and he is gone at this point. And President Biden has made Jessica Rosenworcel the acting chairwoman. So we don't yet have a permanent chair, but I think it's very instructive for those of you who work on these issues. When the 2017 wireless infrastructure report and order was passed, then Commissioner Rosenworcel had some remarks about the report and order. So if you want to get a sense of what she was thinking as one of the Democratic commissioners at that time, that's some information that might be helpful to you in starting up some of these conversations. But we don't know when the president is going to announce who the permanent nomination for the chair will be. Right now, with Chairman Pai leaving the commission, instead of having 5 folks on there, we have 4 commissioners, well, 3 commissioners and a chairwoman, acting chairwoman. So there are 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans currently. So what I would expect in terms of both Twilight Towers and other initiatives that the FCC has worked on in the past is that it's going to be a little while, because obviously our acting leadership is unlikely to, determine what their position is. It might not be the same. Chairman Pai had a very specific way that he operated and nominated Commissioner Carr to be the quote unquote infrastructure czar. So we don't know what's going to happen. And so as I would suspect with many different agencies, it's probably going to be a minute until we get our permanent leadership, and then you hear back about what our next steps are. So similarly, with Valerie mentioning that there was not a response immediately, by the time that the advisory council let the commission know about how the vote had gone and declining to issue the program comment, it was very close to the election. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but that's kind of where we are. And both myself and I have a new deputy federal preservation officer. Her name is Christine Heacock, and she has also been listening in, as well as one of the members of our Office of Native Affairs and Policy. So we are listening. It's been a very enjoyable conference. You guys are doing a great job. And thank you for holding this and for letting us attend.
Thank you, Jill. And Val Hauser, I think you're probably breathing a sigh of relief that Jill jumped in and rescued you.
Yes, thank you, Jill.
Yeah,
She's one
sorry.
of my favorite people at FCC.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. It's been it's been a struggle, and that actually kind of segues us nicely into another topic that I think people will have a lot of things to say about, which is, what do we want to see out of the new administration? And we've had 4 years of struggle, and now the door is reopening. And yesterday, President Biden did release an executive memorandum reaffirming Obama's executive memorandum from 2009, which reaffirmed the executive order 13175 from the 2000 Clinton administration. And we all are familiar with the executive order, and Obama's memorandum was the one that required federal agencies to report on what they were doing to enhance tribal consultation. So I think that it's a good thing that Biden did that so early, just a week into his new administration. But I'm also a little concerned that rather than strengthen the language of 13175 or of the 2009 memorandum, it was basically just, what he said, and that was 12 years ago, or 11, a little over 11 years ago. So, and this might be something else for a word cloud, but I can't build one right now. But again, something for chatting, or something to raise your hands and unmute yourself about. What's your wish list? Even if you're kind of, going for the universe, what would you want to see in the new administration, if it was up to you?
I have something to add.
Please, Everett.
There's been a tremendous problem. The government has been focusing on creating efficiencies, was the buzzword, which we all know on the call really meant, let's gut the National Historic Preservation Act and NEPA. But anyway, I'm beating a dead horse. The problem is we're having a lot of agencies that do, I'm going to call them out by name. We're having a major issue with NRCS, as well as other agencies, but a major issue with NRCS issuing funding before the NHPA review has been completed, or in the event that an NHPA review has been completed and then the tribes and or the SHPOs have said that a project can't be completed in the form that's been proposed for whatever reason, and they still issue it. I'm aware that in the state of Arkansas, there's been like at least somewhere around like 8-10 in the last year alone. And some of those have been on archaeological sites. We're dealing with that situation constantly. It's all over at least the Mississippi Delta, and our ancestral sites are being destroyed, not only by looters, meth addicts, but also by the federal government, even when we tell them that there's sites there. And it's a major issue. And NRCS is completely out of compliance. And I'm being really blunt here, but it's a major problem. They have funded deep tilling, which is essentially just imagine running an archaeological site through a wood chipper. That's what they have funded on multiple occasions in the Mississippi Delta. And this is a major issue that all tribes need to be aware of. In RCS, not only do they not consult correctly, not tell people correctly, but they're also telling some tribes about projects and not telling others. Sometimes they'll tell a tribe about a project and not tell the state, and vice versa. It's completely out of control. And so anyway, to bring it to wrap it up in a bow, my wish list is that we need to get consultation under control.
Thanks, Everett. Yeah, and you can see from the chat that people are agreeing that there are issues, and I have my own wish list. I think we all have a wish list, but Noah might have to unmute himself and let me know if I'm gonna try with your last name here, Noah. Let's see. Except now it's disappearing from my screen. Wakwabushkuk? Was I even close?
Yeah, very close.
Yay! Could you actually say it so we can hear it right?
It's Wakwubushkuk.
Oh, I just put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. So you want to talk about your actually, I want to know what you mean here. You say New England tribes are tasked with responding to complex energy projects, and many have zero funding. That is so true. So you want to advocate for more TIPO funding because of things like that. Oh, I think he remuted himself. Just unmuted to pronounce his name for us. So thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the FCC issue. We no longer have the ability to charge the age or the proponents, the companies, the industry for the consultation that they want us to do. That's true for so many of these things. And we've seen some terrific examples today of some cultural resource offices and TIPO offices that have these wonderful structures and all sorts of staff. But I think that's probably the exception and not the rule. A lot of folks are operating on a shoestring with if they're lucky, with 2 people, and in a lot of cases, only 1. So
we have some ideas, and you've heard about the things that NATHPO has done and continues to do on that front with congressional appropriators. But again, the money from the Historic Preservation Fund just goes to TIPO tribes with that agreement in place with DOI. And even then, it's wildly insufficient. We need to continue to press on that front. We can't give up. We need to redouble our efforts. I think I probably need to put the written materials that I have on the website so that you can use those. You can reach out to your own senators and congressmen, your elected representatives at the federal level, especially if they're on the Interior Appropriations Committee for the Senate and the House, and let them hear from you examples of what's needed, of what you've done. We want to have our mid-year event, and I think we need to look more creatively at the realm of possibilities that could exist. The work that you guys do, you wear so many different hats. We need to look to, I'm not going to get into specifics here, but there's a lot of places that I think we can look creatively, government, foundations, elsewhere, to push on that front and to work together. Yeah, because it's, we're kind of starting at ground zero with what you guys need. And I think there's a lot of different ways that what you do could be spun to fit a variety of resources that are available, which is not something you guys have time to do in your daily jobs. So use us for that. Let us know your ideas, and we'll keep pushing on that. And we look forward to working on that with you.
And Reno Franklin asked to speak. His hand was raised. Reno, you want to unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me, Shasta?
Yes.
So I just want to remind everybody that you work for tribal governments if you're one of us, and if you're one of them, then you don't work for tribal governments, and go do what you do. But the suggestion of going to the Interior Appropriations Committee is spot on, and that's something that NATHPO has done for years, has gone and testified in front of that committee for why we need funds, why we need an increase in funds, and that's definitely the process to follow. But I keep seeing and hearing reoccurring themes, right? And so consultation, hey, they're never going to get consultation right, ever. And the reason why is because of the inconsistencies that exist within federal agencies and how they consult with tribes. You can see BLM. I love to pick on them, and I don't mean Black Lives Matter. BLM is notorious for having being the bookends of tribal consultation. You'll have one side that's terrific and one side that you just absolutely cringe at, and they could be, in next door neighbor regions. Until we have set standards and guidelines for what tribal consultation is, it'll continue to be absolute crap. And there has to be performance standards for tribal consultation. And it has to be project by project, and it has to be reviewable by the federal agency annually. And until we have those standards and until we have something to measure it against, there will continue to be those inconsistencies, and we'll be spinning our feet in the mud, our wheels in the mud, our moccasins in the mud for an eternity. It's been 400 years of it, 200 under this government structure, and it's still not working. I think that it's really cute that Biden put out the same exact information that the previous 3 administrations did on consultation. I mean, I'd like to see some teeth to it. Unfortunately, there really isn't any. So, but it also signals to his people what his intent is, and I think he'll fulfill it. I'm going to beat a dead horse here, Shasta, and say that all of you as TIPOs will continue to be in the same position that you are until we become mandatory signatories on programmatic agreements.
Yes.
And so we are still not. We couldn't get this done in the Obama administration that was semi-friendly. You're absolutely foolish if you think we were getting that done during the Trump administration. And I think that under this administration, we have a shot. But your tribal leaders need to be the ones that say we need to be mandatory signatories and stop letting them come up with excuses onto why we're not. I think another thing is that, do you know that there's no mandatory training for federal agency employees on how to talk to tribal governments and how to consult with tribal governments? So how can we expect them to consult properly when they still view us as their Indians? We have to have mandatory training for federal agencies on how to talk to tribes. Until we get that, we'll still see the inconsistencies. I kind of want to point one last couple things out here. You know, we had a working group for, it was a treaty rights working group, and it was an MOU that existed between multiple federal agencies that were identified as having responsibility under treaties and ACHP. And there was another one that was a sacred sites group that was charged in the same way. This was done towards the back half of the Obama administration. Tito didn't pick it up. And so that left us all kind of hoping to see that come back again. Those MOUs with those federal agencies and ACHP still exist. And I think that tribal leaders need to call that out and say, hey, you need to start that conversation back up so we can get recommendations, reports, and action items for both sacred sites and treaty rights and responsibilities. So, you know, the question of what do we want to see would give me the damn land back, but if you can't, do these things. And land back, hashtag land back is awesome. I hope you all understand what 30 by 30 is, because us having control or outright ownership of 30% of the U.S. lands is something that we need to accomplish. Shasta, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Reno. Yeah. And you brought up something that is on my wish list too in regards to consultation, which is consistency. It makes me crazy when, on top of all the other consultations, requests for consultation that come across my desk, I get this pretty constant stream of, we invite you to review XYZ agency's tribal consultation policy. We are, revising XYZ agency's tribal consultation policy. Please give us your comments in the next 30 days. And, I just kind of want to throw 30 punches, because that's so frustrating that we've got enough to do already. And now we're having to do the labor of having to tell the tribes, or I'm sorry, how to tell the agencies how to consult. And wouldn't it be nice, I think somebody suggested earlier, that if tribes had their own consultation policies and we could just turn around and say, yes, here you go. Here's the PDF. This is our consultation policy. Thank you. And they follow it. Or barring that, having a standardized tribal consultation policy across the federal government. And there may be drawbacks to that I haven't considered, but it seems to me that the basic standards should apply and across all agencies. And then if there are certain things that are specific to the roles that particular agencies play, then that can be added to those agencies' policies. But I'm just tired. I know you guys are tired too of being asked to say yet again, look, just call, just do more than check the box. Come out and visit us, learn who we are. So many things that we need to accomplish, and anything that makes our work easier. But as far as the programmatic agreement is concerned, I mean, absolutely. I remember when I first heard that we could only be a concurring party for a local PA, and I thought, what? This has a direct impact on Paula's ancestral territory. What are you saying? This is going to happen whether we sign it or not. And that was a big eye opener for me when I was a baby TIPO, and it still angers me as a middle-aged TIPO. Yes, Everett.
You're bringing up I want to segue into something that's related to that. So we, quote, can't be meant, like they're not mandated to have us as signatories because we don't have Section 101 D2 authority on that land. We only have full authority on trust land, whereas the state has full authority, which is what you already well know, but I'm reiterating it for a point. And the point is our funding is essentially they allocate an amount of funding for all the states, and then we receive this much to cover what work we do on trust land. But as every single TIPO on the call knows, probably 85–90% of our daily work reviewing stuff is not on trust land, unless you happen to be fortunate from a tribe that has just a vast reservation that hasn't been greatly reduced. But most of us are not in that situation. And I know my tribe is not. And so, we barely receive enough money to cover my position. And as a result, a lot of tribes that don't have extra money can't hire anybody. And they've taken away the TC&S money. But the reality of the situation is we are under 36 CFR 800 asked to review projects that are not located on trust land, but we don't receive any funding for that. And I think that is something that should be also talked about at a congressional level. And perhaps it's something that the Biden administration could discuss whenever whenever we're trying to get them to push for a certain package with MPS funding. But part of it's the way that we're looked at. We only have full authority on trust land, even though we're asked to do work off of trust land. And that's a problem there.
Yes, absolutely, Everett. And looking at the comments too, there are people making comments about, like Steve Vance is saying, how is it that a SHPO is at a higher level above a TIPO on PAs or MOAs or agencies and applicants that are given more authority than a sovereign nation? So it's really something that needs to be changed. And then what you mentioned too about the different, basically it makes me think of different tribal lands. There's trust lands and there's Indian country and there's treaty lands. And in California there are no treaty tribes in California. I think with one exception, I believe that one of the Northern California tribes has a treaty, but there were 18 unratified treaties in California for a lot of tribes that, we still think they should honor those treaties, but they were never ratified by the Senate. So the treaty obligations for some tribes, there are no treaty obligations for other tribes. And so, it's just, there needs to be some sort of education about that as well. So like Reno was saying, there's no training. There's no training for federal agency folks. They don't know about any of this stuff. They have no idea. And how are we going to get some of these greater, I was going to say rights, but they're already rights, this greater access, and more say, if people don't even understand what the issues are. So this is something else I want that's on my wish list, which is, more training for agency folks from the tribal perspective, and to be able to somehow fund that so that the tribes themselves, tribal folks, are the ones providing that training. It's not the same if it's not coming from a tribal person.
Shasta, this is a conversation that we're also involved in its very early stages. The Udall Foundation, I won't take time explaining. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. And the Federal Permitting Infrastructure Steering Committee. I always want to say improvement, but it's infrastructure. FPISC, FIPSI, also go look that up if you don't know what that is, have been working together on this topic, and we're involved in the conversations about training, consultation training for agencies. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. It needs to be from the tribal perspective, which is what the Udall Foundation brings to the table. So, yeah, we're talking about that.
That's great. And so let's see, I'm scrolling through the messages here just to see if there's any other questions coming up. I'm going to do a brief time check here. It is 2:09, which is 5:09 on the eastern side of the country. And wait, let me see if I can get my times right. Central time, that would be 4, is that right? And Mountain time would be 3. And now here in the Pacific, it's 2. So we have on our agenda that from 5:15 to 6:15 Eastern was going to be our until next time social hour, but we're just gonna keep on rolling with our conversation. I'll see now Lance is like, oh, I gotta go. Shasta's talking about time. I'm out. Bye, Lance. And we do have a hand up from Ron Montez. So Ron, unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. This is Ron Montez. I'm out here in California. We had snow last night, of all things, up here in Lake County. Anyhow, I brought to the attention of our tribal leadership. I was looking at the funding for the TIPOs of California. I was going through to see what was going to be allocated for each tribe, and ours especially. And I noticed that underneath there was also some funding for different groups, and one of them was the NAACP, and they had twice amount of funding available as all the tribes put together. And we was looking at that. I don't want to start a racial controversy, but it seems like this. We are the First Nations. We've been here long before anyone else, and we are continually being treated lesser. And I brought it to our tribal chairman's attention, and he was appalled at it. But it was just something that has always just stuck in my craw about that we're still being, as TIPOs, the oversight of covering these important issues for the state, still treated in the same manner of a lesser than. And I just wanted to get that off of my chest, basically, and just throw it out there that we do need at least comparable funding and not lesser. At least 2 to 1 is what the funding added up to, and it was appalling to me. So I'm just throwing that out there. We can take it or leave it, but it's just one of those things that sticks in my craw. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
I have a comment about that
go
as
ahead.
well. So the total ask for the Historic Preservation Fund, if that's what you're referencing, includes a lot of other line items, and TIPOs are a small part of that. And that is exactly the point that I've been hammering on, and I'm sure that Bambi always did too. And so the way that those numbers come about, what we ask for is in collaboration with the preservation partners in DC. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the National Conference of SHPOs, and several other groups. And especially in the category of other groups, including the trust, those grants programs, competitive grants for all kinds of historic preservation things, is a big push for them. And as Ted and I keep saying, SHPOs and TIPOs are the backbone of NHPA, and tribes are in a special category altogether. So if you know someone at the trust, if you want an email, they would be well served to hear from you guys on this.
Yeah, and Sally Peterson had a question for you, Ron. She wanted to know where you were talking about.
the listing that comes out from the NPS on the amount of grants for each tribe in California.
Okay. Yeah, and the thing is too is it makes me think about this. Well, the term I've heard about it is the oppression Olympics. You know, where different people who have a need for more, more justice, more equity and equality, economic, social, cultural, all of the above. It's kind of like this competition where you say, well, who needs it more? And I don't want to be having the funding Olympics, because all these different issues are deserving of funding, and they're deserving of support. But you're right, where it feels like the tribes are always at the end of the chain, and we see what the consequences of that are. It's not just in historic preservation, it's in all ways, that we can see what's happening with COVID, and the tragedy that this pandemic has been throughout Indian country, and the people that we've lost, friends and relatives and loved ones, and tribes and communities of color in general, but definitely tribes are bearing the brunt of this. And part of it is because of this funding inequality. So we're essentially operating under this unfunded mandate. We need those funds, and I would rather not see it be at the expense of some other issue that also deserves funding. It's just overall. And, I'm not an economist, but it's, so I know if there's economists who might say this is not, you're not understanding this correctly. But I have to say, it kind of seems to me that, if we're able to suddenly find all the money for, the $600 and $2,000 stimulus checks and what have you, then there's got to be a way to beef up that budget for these issues when we're not in a crisis. So, again, not an economist, so I don't know if it's that simple. Let's see. So we have a question from Marshall E. Our Tribal Historic Preservation Department is 100% funded by TCNS. Now that has ceased, we have to convince the council to fund us with general funds. Any ideas about outside funding would be greatly appreciated. So, kind of the short answer to that is that if you are recognized as a TIPO through NPS, then you automatically are qualified for funding through the TIPO apportionment. Having grown, I think Paula was number 96 11 years ago, but now we're up to 200 plus TIPOs. The amount of funding has not grown at the same rate as the number of TIPOs. But if you don't have that status, then that would be my suggestion, is to apply to become a TIPO. And of course, what does that take? Money, time and money. But there's also, you're number 185. Okay, so you should be getting money from the federal government. If your agreement was just signed, I think you have to wait until the following year. But it shouldn't have been just signed if you're number 185, because we're up to 200 now. So yeah, that is money that if you don't have a TIPO office, and that's something else that NATHPO could potentially provide as well, is some training on how to fill out the paperwork and provide the documentation necessary to do your TIPO application. And we ended up hiring somebody to do it, and I realized when he was done, this is back when I was a baby, that it actually wasn't that hard, and I probably could have done it myself and saved the tribe some money, but I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm trying to help some of our local tribes here in San Diego who haven't gone through the process and get to that point. But Matthew Butzler makes a great point. The apportionment won't pay for the salary of a TIPO. And yeah, you're right. And you say for the 2 years, I mean, they are actually 1-year grants that you have 2 years to spend them, which kind of makes me laugh, because I think a lot of programs spend their full apportionment in like 3 months. But yeah, it's not enough, So
however much trust land they have is however much money. If they have a particularly small reservation,
right?
There's tribes that get like 30 grand. That's it.
Well, and I think that was something else that somebody brought up earlier in one of the comments was, how do we change the formula? And I think there's a minimum amount. I think the minimum amount is I want to say 40,000. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is, yeah. it's based on how big you are. But even you know, the Navajo Nation, which is the largest in terms of land, I think that, I mean, the amount that they get, and it's all publicly released, is, you know, in the very, very low six figures. I want to say it's like 106,000 or something. And you know, you're going to fund the entire Navajo Tribal
Yeah.
Historic Preservation Office on that? I don't think so.
You
You know,
can't run
here
a
in
department.
Koala, it's like, I want to say like 52,000. You know, I'm also the environmental director, so thankfully EPA grants pay my salary. I take nothing from our TIPO money. I use that for my assistant, but it barely pays for her. All right, sorry. See, the thing is, when you're the one who's you know, pinned to the screen, you talk a lot. See, I'm looking through to see if there's some other comments. I mean, maybe we can, Steve Vance is saying that the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe is reluctant to get any money from TCNS until FCC comes back to Section 106 consultation, government to government, face to face, with the interest of tribes in mind. So maybe that's another thing for our wish list for the Biden administration, is to get that going again, to get the payments for doing the consultation on cell phone towers, especially with the rollout of 5G. Let's see. Michael Kicking Bear has a long comment here. Instead of reading it, Michael, do you want to unmute and talk to us?
Sure. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my comment was basically that, and maybe this is more just to get everybody up to speed, and apologize if I typed that and it didn't come out right, because I'm not wearing my reading glasses, which is always a problem. But again, what our offices are dealing with here on the East Coast heavily, only because our southern New England is a test bed for offshore wind, and with outwards to 13 projects all across the eastern seaboard, you know, going all the way down to basically Florida. And they are charging, they being the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management, charging fees to largely European operators for the right to develop. And the plan, when you look at the lease agreements, they also plan to charge them operational fees once they're running. So if you do the math, which we've done based on what they have in their leases, so not an extraordinary amount of money. And the oil and gas lease program has existed forever, which is where that grant money comes from. The offshore wind or alternative energy program through BOEM is simply an extension of that oil and lease gas program. So there is no excuse in my mind's eye, based on the projection of planned projects, for not increasing that grant program. And I just want people to think about that and be aware of that, because as far as we're concerned, the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management is a business partner when you're taking operational fees, any fees really. You're not a regulatory agency at that point. You are a partner in the sense of business. So, so something that I think we should be paying attention to. So that was really my comment. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, and just thinking in general about the idea too that you know, that the Historic Preservation Fund comes from oil and gas drilling. That makes me a little uneasy from a climate change perspective.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. You know, and it's basically the same coffer. And you know, now we're basically mimicking a bad process and turning it into and saying it's good, it's green, it's renewable energy, right? Well, you know, I won't go off on a diatribe about other problems surrounding that, and even the Green New Deal. But anyway, I just wanted to make people aware of that. So again, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, there's so many different things to consider, but you know, I still think the bottom line, our conversations come back to three big things. You know, funding being one of them, consultation being a big one, and you know, how we get around to changing these things and making them more equitable, and you know, basically or frankly, recognizing tribal sovereignty, you know, which seems to be a problem over and over again. All right, so I'm looking and not seeing any other big questions coming up. Lots of comments that I hope you all are following. We do have people dropping off, you know, because I know it's past business hours in a couple parts of the country right now. So, and that's okay, because technically this is supposed to be our social hour where people are able to just, you know, talk to one another and, you know, say hi. And it's hard to do when you've got a room full of mostly invisible people. But, you know, if, again, anybody who wants to unmute or just say hi to a friend, or, you know, maybe we can do a little bit of Zoom karaoke. No, I'm kidding. I used to sing in a choir, but the reason I sang in the choir was because I could just sort of mumble and make it look like I was singing. Valerie, do you have anything else you want to add? If you do, you're muted.
Sorry.
Oh!
Something?
No, see, that's perfect. I mean, I think that's how we all feel, just like we want to cry.
I totally missed that. Was there a question for me?
No, I was just saying a lot of people are, you know, kind of saying thank you and goodbye and signing off. And so, you know, I just wanted to ask you if there was anything else you wanted to add. Oh, and now Antonio is accusing me of waking up the baby. Sorry, Vivian, I didn't mean to wake you up. Okay, I think that's actually kind of a perfect ending. Oh, and now my phone is ringing. That's strange. It hasn't rang all day. Oh yeah, it's my fault. You know what? I don't have children, and you know that might show you the reason why, you know, babies hear my voice and they're like, "Oh, shut!" They just start crying. I have cats and I have chickens, and you know, we could turn that into a thread. Everybody start naming your pets. But no, I don't think I want to do that. But actually, one of my chickens has the same name as Valerie's baby. I have a chicken named Vivian. And that's because I named my chickens after my grandmothers. So I have Vivian, Therese, Opal, and Agnes. Those are my chickens. But anyhow, so yeah, a lot of people are just kind of signing off and saying goodbye. And you know, maybe that's kind of our sign that we've reached the end of our tether. Everett.
One quick thing. I noticed
Yeah.
that the Northern Ponca, who are our relative tribe, and the name sounded familiar, but they were asking a question about tribes as service areas, and I wanted clarification, and it's going to be much faster if we just talk really quick. Are you saying that you have a service, if I remember correctly, your tribe's situation is you have no trust land, but you have areas of concentrations of Northern Poncas that you refer to as your, that were your traditional land base and you refer to as your service area. Is that right? I'm not seeing an answer, are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we don't have reserve land. We did a long time ago. But now we just have service areas.
Yeah.
When we became reinstated, you know, certain counties are service areas. So I didn't know if there were any other tribes across the United States that were in this type of situation. I know some of my consultations and such, it's a little, on certain matters, it's a little bit different how I have to approach things. So
are you asking a question about how you exert full authority over your land that you don't have in trust status, or are you referring to an issue with not feeling like you get adequate? Do you have TIPO designation?
Yes.
So you do have some trust land then?
Some, yes, that we had purchased.
And then what specifically are you trying to accomplish?
Well, one, I'm just asking if there are any other THPOs out there that I could relate to, and maybe we could just start a, you know, relationship with.
I think, is Tanya Tipton on the line or on the call still, I mean?
Yes, I am.
Is your tribe, correct me if I'm wrong, your tribe has a very similar situation, right?
Mhm.
You
Yes.
might be able to assist her better than I could because we're not in that situation.
What we did is we put land into trust, which is in Guyman, Oklahoma. And that's how we ended up with our trust land.
But you
Okay.
consider Miami a service area, right?
Yes.
So there's definitely at least one other tribe that's in your situation. And in fact, the Delaware may be in a similar situation as well, I believe.
I think so.
So Northern Punk, I've lost your name, but the Delaware tribe and the Shawnee tribe, I believe they're the only two tribes that I know of besides your own that are in your situation.
Oh, okay.
But they could probably help you some.
All right, I can put my email down in the comments real quick and go from there.
Bonjour, this is Matthew Bustler, Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Pokagon Band, Potawatomi out of Michigan and Indiana.
Hello.
Hello. Just wanted to chime in here real quick in the fact that the Pokagon Band actually has a 10-county service area, 4 in Southwest Michigan and 6 counties in Northern Indiana as our reservation boundaries. We do have trust property, federal trust property as well. But yeah, so I just thought I'd chime in there, and if you wanted to exchange contact information, we could reconnect and, you know, kind of make that kind of a discussion or have like a roundtable discussion regarding issues with people who have that specific circumstance. So.
That's great. Thank you, Matthew. It's nice to hear your voice after reading your comments all day.
Yeah, no, I usually I have a sense of humor that most people can't handle, but I'm not very like technically inclined, saying that this is like my 2nd year since I was furloughed for quite a bit during this COVID pandemic. This is only, I'd say, 2.25 years that I've been doing tribal historic preservation. So
Oh, so you're one of our baby tippos.
I'm a baby tippo. Yep. So my background is in GIS.
That's right. That's, yeah, a lot of your comments have been about that. And that's actually a perfect example of how the younger or the people who are new to being tippos, it can really be helpful to the people who have been around for a long time. Because if somebody, held a knife to my throat and said, do GIS, I'd be like, and then I'd be dead. So, nobody wants that. At least I hope not. But I'm not speaking of an odd sense of humor, you got me. But that would be
It's
wonderful.
been a joy, Shasta. It's been a joy. I've been loving it.
But I mean, that's something I really could use to learn. And I remind myself of how terrible I am at GIS and at Microsoft Excel every time my mom calls me and says, how do I do this thing on my phone? And I think, you know what, that's me with GIS and Excel. So I need to be patient with my mom. We all have things we don't know about. But yeah, Excel is my kryptonite, and GIS, I've never even tried to learn it. So but yeah, that was great. Thank you, Everett, for facilitating that little private information or personal information session, that's exactly the kind of networking we'd be doing if we were all together in person. And so maybe that's a question as people are dropping off, but maybe that's just a question for people to think about on their wish list. When we can meet again in person, where would you like to be? I mentioned Yellowstone. I've never been, and I mean, it's probably not going to be this year just because, or maybe it will be, I don't know, maybe December. I mean, normally the NATHPO conference has been in August. By this August, I don't think we're going to be ready, but let's just say if in 2022, I'm going to just be super hopeful that everything is normal enough that we can meet in person. So, just put your fantasy, where have you always wanted to visit in the United States, or what's one of your favorite places? Make suggestions. Wes suggested Alaska because he lives there. Thanks, Wes. But Alaska's huge, so it doesn't have to be where you live.
And think about that. And before everybody else hops off, I just want to issue an enormous thank you. We made some slides to that effect, but Vivian agrees. Thank you to our members, our potential members, our conference participants, registrants, our partners, our speakers, our team, our board, our outgoing board, our incoming board, our sponsors. You guys made this happen with the gift packages, in addition to Julie and her family, and my family. They were packed with love and shipped with love. And that was an undertaking. So I hope you've enjoyed those in the spirit of community. And this is the first conference on my watch, and I couldn't be happier with the way that it's gone, minus the tech glitches today. And I just want to thank everybody out there. I'm so grateful. We've gotten so much valuable feedback and information that we can use in shaping our programming for the coming year and the future to better serve and support you, our members and potential members. Thank you.
Yes, echoing Valerie, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful background tech support too, with Melissa and Julie. Just, going through the chats, and we've been on a continuous text string between the four of us since yesterday, saying there's a hand up, there's a question here, just making sure that we're keeping on track. So, just the warmest possible, tightest virtual hugs to all of you. And we will, of course, be letting everybody know and putting updates on our website about when the next conference will be, and sending out all of the follow-up materials, the links, the various contact blah, blah, blah from the chat to everybody soon, and also posting the videos, although that might take a little time. But yes, we will do it all and let you guys know. So, all right.
Will the recording of the 2 days be available to watch?
It will, at some point. We need to break it down into the separate sessions so that you don't have to find the spot in a 6-hour recording.
Yeah, I got called away yesterday, and I was like, "What now?"
No, Miss Lisa. We will make sure that we get you everything. So, and last comment, which is perfect, from Michael Larange. He looks forward to being able to purchase his "Crushed by 106" T-shirt. So Everett, get to work on that meme, and we'll do it. All right, everybody, be well.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.